Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another session of the Lusaka Apex Medical University virtual research presentations. These are weekly presentations from not only our LAMU members, but as well as special guests. Today's topic is cosmetics manufacturing. We have a special presenter. We have Professor Mimmie Claudine Watts with us today. I would like to acknowledge the presence of our professorial team, comprising of Professor Njelesani, Professor Lambert, Professor Mudenda, Professor Mwawa, Professor Wansa, Professor Viemba, Professor Kasonka. We also have Professor Kumar, we have Professor Emaus, Professor Gilani, just to name a few. To touch a bit on today's presenter, Professor Watts is an associate professor of the Federation University in Australia. She brings her extensive expertise in public health policy and leadership to the realm of cosmetics manufacturing. With almost 2 decades of experience in health governance, higher education, and research, she has been in the forefront of driving innovation and collaboration across the sectors. Throughout her academic journey, this includes a PhD in public health from La Trobe University and advanced leadership training at Harvard University. These are but a few of her many accolades that I could not squeeze into one introduction. So I would like to warmly welcome her as today's special guest presenter. Now, I would like to invite Professor Viemba to once again introduce Professor Watts, as well as invite her to take the floor. Professor Viemba, the floor is yours.
Hello. Thank you so much, Ms. Chinondo. Thank you so much, Prof. Watts, for accepting to speak to us today. The network seems to be not very well, and I can see that saying your bandwidth is low, so I'm going to put off my video. But just to say that I met Prof. Watts in Zanzibar in December. This was at the African Union Science Research. We call it in scientific wing of the African Union. We had a conference there, and she made a presentation. I was very impressed because that's an area the Lusaka Apex Medical University is also interested in. And she talked about her work in cosmetic manufacturing using local resources, basically natural products. And I was interested, and I talked to her and said, well, could you speak to our team at Lusaka Apex Medical University? Because as you know, Lusaka Apex Medical University is interested in developing natural products through the land that we have. We have land in Rufunza and many other countries. Rufunza is a place within Lusaka province, and we have a lot of forest in there. And we're thinking that we could collaborate with Professor Watts in this project that she's been undertaking. And so the focus is basically on cosmetic manufacturing. If there will be time, she could touch on some work that she does on women's health and gender. But I think for now, we are looking at cosmetic manufacturing. Without wasting much of your time, I want to invite Professor Watts to speak to us. Prof?
Thank you so much, Professor Viemba. It's really an honor to join you and the team, and you've already captured it in a nutshell, how we met not too long ago. And I'm very honored to join this esteemed group here today to just share a few highlights and insights into what is possible if we could hopefully collaborate and work together. But before I start, Profs, acknowledging all of you in the room, but I did also extend this invitation to two of my colleagues here in Australia, both professors, one associated with my own university, Federation University, which is one of the public universities here in Australia, and also another colleague, Professor Berhan Ahmed from University of Melbourne, and also associated with my other former university, which was Victoria University. So I hope if they're in the room, please acknowledge them. And then from the industry side, I do have from Lessons Afrique Partnership, the industry partner, Mr. Mamoun Haig, whom again, it's really important that he is in the room, but he had the invitation as well, just so that if there were some technical questions, especially in the area of manufacturing, and because they've been doing this for some time, then he'll be able to answer some of those technical questions because he's a lab scientist. And further, I did extend it to the chair of ASTRIC, who, of course, I first met Dr. Engineer Hamdi Ahmed in 2018, or maybe even earlier, but first ASTRIC meeting that we had in Nigeria. And since then, we've worked collaboratively. And thanks to him, ASTRIC is what it is today, but also the creation of the chairs that I now chair the Australasia chapter. And of course, there was also Dr. Hisham Shakir, that the invitation again through ASTRIC because of their knowledge, but also their experience working on the ground in Africa, but also the direct association as well with ASTRIC. So I cannot see the names of who is in the room on my screen, but I just want to thank you all. If you are in the room, thank you for joining, and thank everybody for taking the time to be with us today. So my presentation is going to focus on the Cosmetic Manufacturing Partnership Initiative for African countries using indigenous plants. And here's the overview. I'm going to just give you a bit of a context and the vision. First, for the Institute of African Studies that we are creating, which is the platform ASTRIC, and this is where all this work goes through, provide some objectives of the manufacturing project that we have, the cosmetic manufacturing landscape itself, some of the roles and responsibilities, the development approach, the R&D, and of course, provide you with a conclusion. So my work in Australia is outside the academia. My day job is being a university professor. However, I served as a commissioner as well for multicultural affairs for the state of Victoria for 4 years. So I do a lot of advocacy. But on the ASTRIC platform, one of the things I do in terms of linking the diaspora, but working very closely with different groups, is around focusing on policy and structural exclusion that can be a problem in some of the countries, not only in Australia, but around the Asia Pacific region. But importantly, which is what brings us today in this room, is around fostering local partnerships and trying to bring some of the key partnerships between Australia and Africa so that we can share and exchange knowledge. So when you look at the beauty industry, I think Africa stands to gain a lot because Africa has got significant indigenous plants that they can harness from. And if they can harness and use the indigenous plants in manufacturing cosmetics, I think we are well placed to be a competitor in the global market. But to achieve that, we need to think about research and development. We can leverage on the experience and technologies, for example, that we have here in Australia, which is why there is a significant push, especially with us within the university sectors, to work very closely with our industry partners. And until end of last year, I was also Director of Industry Cooperation in my university within the Institute of Health and Well-being. And one of the key drives within the role was for me to work and bring in industry partners so that they could work with our university academics in designing curriculums that are impactful post-graduation with the students. So one of the key platforms that ASTRI gave me was the Australian African Institute, which will be one of its kind, because unlike historical European countries, North American countries, and South American countries, Australia's presence in Africa has been very top-bottom approach and very colonial. So it's not been really an equal partnership. And the industries that we've traditionally have in Africa have focused on extractives, etc., and especially in the mining industry, where, for example, to my knowledge, we have over 200 Australian companies in the mining space operating in Africa. So, and that is significant, and we can leverage on that to our advantage for the continent. Hence, our mission within the Institute is to encourage interdisciplinary research, but also to engage with African partners and build and strengthen relationships between Australian and African institutions. And that is outside, beyond our academic institutions. We're looking at the diverse sectors on agriculture, mining, and in this case, cosmetic manufacturing falls right within that caveat. And further, to foster a deeper understanding, knowledge, and appreciation of Africans' rich cultures and histories alongside contemporary issues and successes, because people continue to see Africa, unfortunately, through the lens of risk. But if we can tell African stories using African voices, through using African platforms, I think we can change the narrative. Provide a platform for robust dialogue, cross-cultural knowledge exchange, and collaborations, which will ultimately contribute to mutual understanding, while focusing on sustainable development, and through that empower our communities and different people. And as you can see here, the vision is for us to have a very well integrated, connected African diaspora that will be playing a significant and crucial role in the development of the continent. We know that the SID region, which we are, the diasporas are members of the SID region, have a significant role in the development of the continent. So the objectives for this cosmetic manufacturing project, first is to harness and use indigenous resources, to manage, to manage the potential of African indigenous plants, which we all know, but also to create natural and effective cosmetic products that meet the needs of Africans and that are affordable to African people. We would like to promote sustainability in this process. We would like to involve and strengthen local communities with knowledge in terms of cultivation, in terms of harvesting and processing this indigenous plant. So this is where we're really talking about meaningful knowledge and technology transfer. And last but not least, to engage our local academic institutions, for example, LAMU, to help us in that area of research and development, or that we work in partnership to ensure that this technology and knowledge transfer is achieved. And the aim is to provide science-based degree students with knowledge and formulation skills within this industry. And it is so important that the local cosmetic manufacturing industry, using our local ingredients, become sustainable. And I'm going to show you some data later on in this presentation in terms of what, for example, Zambia continues to import, but also the deficit in terms of cosmetic importation. And to support a world-class personal care manufacturing industry in this space, with the goal to create local revenue and employment for the local communities, while promoting the rich cultures, but also the beauty of African ingredients. I've got some projections here. And when you look at 2018, the global cosmetic industry had revenues of over $507 billion. Projections for 2025 were sitting around $558 billion. However, you'll see some other data that I share later on. Those projections already, before we got into 2025, were over $600 billion. So we're talking really big money in some of the spaces in this space. But the key areas and some of the products that are highly utilized, but also that I find that are imported in Africa are in the bath and body categories, hair categories, skincare categories, fragrance and perfumes, and pet products are emerging as an area of interest because of the affluence and the growing middle class that Africa is having, which is a good thing. That's what we want to see. When you look at the global cosmetic and the beauty industry, here are some trends, and look at the data, and that data is in billions. And when you look from 2018 through to where we are in 2025, we are over $600 billion. And projections for 2027 put the figures at over 736 billion. Unfortunately, when you look at the data within African countries, we're still talking about millions. And yet we have a significant youthful population that we can harness. But there is also the economic power within the continent. But people tend to still look from outside because they want to look for quality products, because they cannot really find those quality products at home, or if they are home, there is a lot of scarcity. So when you look at the market size outlook for the continent, and you look at some of these percentages here, and this is data specifically for Africa, we can therefore see that this is an industry that is going to continue to grow. And I don't need to interpret this to any of the scientists in this room, but you can see the growth, which is about just over 7% year in 2024. And that continues to grow with estimates showing that the industry will be growing at over 8%. I delved into some data specifically for Zambia when I was preparing this presentation. And it is the title of the document, Growth and Development in Cosmetics, Soaps, and Detergents, Regional Value Chains, South Africa and Zambia. And the document was from the Center for Competition Regulation and Economic Development and the University of Johannesburg. Again, a partnership between two countries with a very strong focus on Zambia and South Africa, but also there were quite a bit of analysis about the SADC region. And when you look at and you read this document, some of the key things that came out of the document is the deficit that Zambia is experiencing in terms of importations. And when you look at my next slide here, the visuals, look at the bar charts there, the two bar charts. On the left, we have Zambia, total trade in soaps and detergents, and also cosmetics. The QR code that you find there, that is to help you. If you want to scan it, it will take you to the full document. If you want to delve into it, it's a big document. On your right, you have South Africa. And when you look at the trends and you look at the data, you see the negative is Zambia exports of manufactured soaps and detergents to the world in purple. Zambian imports of manufactured soaps and detergents from the world, you see that in orange. And when you look at the trade balance, you see that Zambia across the board has been in deficit, unlike South Africa. So that is saying to us there is a gap in the market. But when you also then look at the trends over a period of time, and just look at the purple and the red lines, Zambia imports of manufactured soaps and detergents, and here they were also including cosmetics, but also exports manufactured soaps and detergents to South Africa. And when you look at the gap, that's significant, and it actually is declining and flattening out. And this was research that was done between 2010 and 2015. So what has happened between the period now? I don't think much this graph would have changed a lot since that period. So if you look at the data, that is saying something to us. But some of the key things that they highlighted in that report is they help to provide a rationale why they have to start producing natural products within the SADC region, but specifically for Zambia and South Africa. They talked about the world-class market. They talked about using indigenous products, and rooibos was one of those mentioned, but also what natural products are available for development within Zambia. And to get here, one of their key highlights was also research and development that needs to be done and must be completed. So one of the things that we are trying to achieve is looking and identifying different plants based on the different countries. And one of the plants that we identified is a moringa in the southern parts of Africa. Moringa is available across most of Africa, but every region of the continent has got an abundance of something. And like moringa, things like boaba, marula, and I look specifically, Zambia has produced a lot of peanuts, a lot of cassava, and other crops that we can actually use. But there is a lot of flora and fauna that traditionally have been used as medicinal plants within the country, and that people continue to use them. And some of that knowledge is actually being lost. And I think one of the things I will be doing with this is also enhancing and trying to restore and research that indigenous and traditional knowledge, because it is knowledge that is also valid. So enhance research capabilities, promote industry academic partnerships, but also to ensure commercialization and sustainability of these products. And we want to ensure that we work with different local communities. I must say, women, I'm going to be skewed to make sure that they are also included in the value chain. I say that all the time in every platform I am in, because as a woman, as a Black woman, working in a very male-dominated industry, because in Australia, for example, our academic institutions, especially when you move up into the professorate, there is a big dichotomy. And if you are a woman and a woman of color, I don't think my species is even 0.01% in the academic population here in the country. So it is a very important area that we need to nurture people through the community, through different platforms, in order to bring them through, because I know that in other industries, that is not very different. And we need to also strengthen the regulatory frameworks and compliance with international cosmetic standards. This is where having the industry partners with research and well-known knowledge is so important. And to achieve that, we have identified there are going to be different roles and responsibilities. So for example, universities, and in the case here, for example, in Zambia, we need to think about the universities spearheading research and development programs, including formulation, testing, and optimization. We need to think about the institutions having laboratories or providing laboratories where students can learn in those laboratories. We need to work with institutions to design curriculums. Some years ago, I did some work with VMware in Silicon Valley, which is a $10 billion company. And one of the things that approached me, they wanted to set up, they wanted to include virtualization and cloud computing in their curriculums across the entire African continent. It was a very successful initiative. And they use some of their sustainable social responsibility money, so corporate social responsibility funds, to fund the project, because they realized that there was a skill lack in that area, and hence people were not taking up and utilizing their software and their technology. So we also know that there is a gap here. We need to ensure that this something like using plants in cosmetic development, and especially African plants, is part of the curriculum, and we have to, design and innovate our curriculums to meet the needs of the 21st century. We need to harness the technologies. So conduct botanical research on indigenous moringa species, for example, or any other plants, and assess their bioactive compounds. And moringa has been very well studied, but there are lots of indigenous African plants that have not been studied, or that the level of studies or research that has gone into moringa has not yet gone into that. We need to provide expertise in pharmacognosy and cosmetic chemistry for formulation preparation, develop collaborative research hubs for interdisciplinary studies involving biotechnology, agriculture, etc. And this is where that intersectoral collaboration is so important. And further, these are some of the other responsibilities that the university... These are some of the other responsibilities that the institutions, the academic institutions have: promote community outreach programs, develop education certification programs, conduct research, conduct socioeconomic impact assessment. We need to know what is the change and what are the benefits within the community. To do that, we need to have that baseline data. We need to have outcomes, measurable outcomes. So we need to design projects, and students from different departments can work with the scientists. So people in sociology, people in chemistry, etc., they can all work together. We need to collaborate with regional regulators. And I think some of the research that I just showed, the data is already showing us that there is a gap, and that they've identified this gap and something is being done in this space. We need to come in and support that work. Participate in cross-border knowledge exchange through conferences and joint publications. Then we have the scientists and the academics, which is us in this room and others in this room, to lead the experiential research design, data analytics, and scholarly dissemination, but also ensure that the knowledge that is generated is actually disseminated and utilized. Because a lot of research gets done, but it sits in the university. We need to actually work with industry so that the knowledge that we generate can actually be put into use. And of course, we need to develop modules, as I said, to ensure that there is a technology transfer and knowledge and skills transfer as well. Then regarding the roles and responsibilities, students have a role to engage in this experiential research. They have to be part of the data collection so they can carry out student projects, qualitative and quality assessment procedures, etc. Participate in internships, but also they have a big responsibility in terms of engaging the community. So we need to empower the students, but we also need to empower the communities as well. And then our communities, this is an important element. And in Australia, we really talk, my university in particular, we really focus on co-design, co-development, and co-deliver. But we need to work with them to provide us with the raw materials that we need in what we are going to try to achieve, but also to ensure the sustainability. There's no need trying to produce a product, manufacture a product, but then you cannot actually go through the entire value chain if you don't have the farmers and the producer from the bottom end feeding through that value chain. So we need to work with them. And to do that, we need to co-design and co-develop programs together. And we need to actually engage them. And of course, provide feedback to improve production, but also market strategies so that they can see how they benefit from the whole process. And of course, industry partners have a role as well in terms of supporting resources. And in this case, especially intellectual property, which is very, very important. Technical issues and regulatory enterprise. They've been operating in that space. They understand the international and the business landscape. So they bring that in. Then the market positioning, the strategies, and establishing distribution channels, because we have to think about, okay, making the product is one thing, but where do you sell it? How are you going to have a place on the shelves, but what is also going to be the shelf life, etc. All of that, this is where our industry partners will come in, but importantly, to help with the compliance. You want to ensure that you work within the international cosmetic standards and ensure that you have the right certification. Then governments also have a responsibility to provide us with direct funding for infrastructure, especially in terms of pilot programs, and also the R&D phase, provide policy guidance, facilitate collaborations between the academic institutions and industry, because government policies are very important, which is why businesses will hold back getting into certain spaces because they're like, the government and the policies in those countries are very restrictive. So we have to ensure that the dynamics between industry, but also with government, are well positioned, but that government is well placed to facilitate the relationships. And finally, governments to establish grants, for example, and subsidies in the early stages, especially of the R&D. But also we need to work with government to promote awareness to the communities why they should accept and use local products made in Africa. And I know the Made in Africa brand is actually rising. So so partnering with local industry partner here in Australia, we're going to ensure that we foster a sustainable approach. But also these are example 3 key products that we think that Zambia has got a lot of them that are already known and recognized in terms of cosmetics because of their medicinal values as well. And when you think about the R&D element of it, we're looking at a multi-tier development approach where we think about the first 6 months, for example, is about working with science-based students in the cosmetic formulation skills to grow the industry. Then the entire first year, because some of the phases are going to overlap, establish world-class facilities that focus on locally sourced ingredients. And this is where you work with your different sectors in particular. Then we look at the agricultural programs, which normally within for the first 2 years, for example, you have to think about the natural resources, the registry for local ingredients with export potential, and also understand domestic and global potential of the African-driven cosmetic products. Where this is a type of an organizational structure, and when you look at R&D, and this is where universities sits right up there at the top. So I think universities will have a significant role to play in order to ensure that this happens. The initial investment and long-term impact, the modest, this is looking at projections for any meaningful impact is going to be minimum 1 to 2 million per unit, preferable in different countries. I looked at my slide the other day and I realized I've missed some zeros, but that's okay. It's 1 million to 2, but the benefits there are to both local industry and employment, because we want to create meaningful employment, promote African natural beauties and cultures, but also ensure and enable sustainable manufacturing. This is an example with our industry partner at one of our own public universities here in Australia, which is Swinburne University, with some of the students. So we have a blueprint already to work on. It is not something that we are guessing, can it be done? No, it is already been done, but this is about now transferring it. And I know that they're in different parts of the world, in Europe, in Asia, they're in South Africa, but that's the only country. And we want to, and I would love to see this go across the different African, especially the countries within the Sahara region, and of course, North Africa. So to conclude, our African indigenous plants are a natural asset for the continent and for the people. And the global community knows and understands that, just like the African minerals and resources are an asset that everybody recognizes. Institutional leaderships through conducting research is so important to ensure that we have sustainable practices in the cosmetic manufacturing sector. Further, we need to work with different stakeholders, So industry partnerships, interdisciplinary research is important, intersectoral collaboration, which is something that's always been out there, but you cannot in a sector like this just work as scientists. We must work with the arts people, we must work with the business world, we must work with the local communities and the farmers. And with Africa's world-class universities, having state-of-the-art laboratories established, but also ensuring that we have policies that are underpinned by effective governance will position the continent, but also the communities that are going to manufacture some of these products as a natural and eco-sustainable center against the world. Further collaborative partnerships with industry stakeholders, which I've over highlighted, using sustainable approaches is so important, because if we don't maintain and ensure that we use sustainable approaches, the resources, we're going to deplete them, and we're going to find ourselves where most of the world is finding itself in terms of global warming. So these resources are not infinite, they are finite. So we want to ensure the sustainability. And finally, we'd like to invite you to join us as we try to revolutionize Africa's beauty industry by fostering sustainable innovation and inclusive development. So I would like to thank you. I'm open to any questions, but I would like you to also be inspired by, it's all about the attitude that we bring. And I was inspired by one of the doctors. I did not get his permission to use his name, but I've just put the initials there to acknowledge and recognize the inspiration. We can do a lot of things if we have the right attitude to it. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Professor Watts. This was an excellent presentation and quite informative too. Now, as she said, please, the floor is open for questions for Q&A. Please note, you can either ask your questions by raising your hand, the floor will be given to you, or you can simply write your questions, comments, and/or observations in the chat, and they will be read out for you. Please bear in mind that this is an open platform. There are no right or wrong questions. This is an excellent opportunity to share ideas and learn.
And if we I can't see the names, all of the names, but if we have Mr. Mamon in the room and, any of the colleagues from ASRI, please, you want to say something and hear from Australia, it would be wonderful.
Again, this is an open floor. Well, for starters, I do have a question. I did want to ask, forgive me if you may have earlier hinted to it, but given your profession, or rather the large scope of what you do, how did you find yourself veering towards your interest in cosmetic manufacturing? What were the things you noticed?
No, I guess it's really everything I have done. I'm passionate about things, but then I was at one of the business forums and I stood up and I spoke about something, and we happen to also have the industry partner. It's like, oh, this is something that we've been trying to do or we would like to do, and would you come on board? And I listened. Then I went to the factory. I did not put some of my own photos, but I've got some products. Let me just get up and get some products. So it was really interesting. So I actually took some of this to Zanzibar. So this is made from 20% shea butter. So that tells you already using some of the products. But also, it was really interesting because I was interested because of how much money personally I spend in the cosmetic sector, because I want to have the right products. But there's really no big manufacturers that target colored skin, especially in a place like Australia. So for example, this is a serum, and these two serums, this has got more of the, how do you call it? How do you pull it? This is for anti-blemishes. So it doesn't bleach you or anything, but maintains your skin. This is 15 mils. It costs $72. 15 mils, 1.5. And this is by our industry partner, exactly the same. And you can, but they've made it with better ingredients, and the target is my own skin to use it. And this is some of what, and that is 50 mils. And I tell you, it is about 50% of that price. This is 50 mils, that is 1.5 mil. So that just tells you from a personal perspective, but also what I think of the product itself.
So you're catering to quite a large demographic that has gone on, what's the word I'm looking to? But they haven't been targeted and serviced. Now, this is an excellent initiative. This is excellent. Well done.
Thank you.
So, please, the floor is open. As you've seen, any question can open more doors to widening our perspective regarding whatever the topic is on the floor. And one thing I can say, I do appreciate this particular topic because it's the first of its kind that LAMU has had.
Okay, thank you. You did mention because as scientists and as academics, and I've tried to be an academic who is also very present in industry as well. So my work has not really just stayed at the university, and that has been the trend over 20 years, really being present in the university, but also being very practical with whatever I am doing, that it benefits the communities directly. If it is not going to benefit, the research is not going to benefit the community, I don't do it. I don't just do research for the sake of doing research and publishing the next paper. And that is why I'm very involved in the policy work, because as academics, we tend to shy away from the policy, but we have a lot of influence in that space, because if we don't influence policy, the risk are other people will fill that gap and will make policies that affect and impact us, and our students as well. And if we can be part of the policy, then we're going to be able to ensure that policies are made such that they have a positive impact on students, who also then make better decisions later.
Wonderful. This is, for those in the audience, I'm sure you've heard, this is a call to be more present. That's what I've understood. Be more present and to actually take hold of your processes. Let it not just end at research, but let it go all the way through policy up to actualization, or rather implementation in the particular field and or environment.
Absolutely.
Now, this is a very, very interesting, it's a very interesting case and field. So, once again, please take note. The floor is open. Please do not shy away. I actually enjoy a shy audience because I start calling names.
Please ask your questions.
Yes, Olga, I can't see my hand somewhere there.
Oh,
can I comment something?
You're welcome, Professor Mwansa. The floor is yours.
I very much enjoyed the topic. One thing that caught me is the strengthening of collaboration between the Australian and African universities. And you mentioned about providing laboratory facilities and curriculum development, especially in biotechnology. Can you comment on that? How does the institution assist APEX to provide laboratories facilities, and how have you done that in other institutions?
In the terms of, that was within the area of the roles and responsibility, Prof. And thank you, Professor Mwansa, for a very interesting question. I guess when you look at the roles and responsibilities, every institution has got roles, because when we talk about a partnership, we want everybody who is involved in that process to bring something to the table. This is why we go right to what we expect to see from government and in terms of governance and institutions. So when I talked about laboratories, it is not us bringing in the laboratory, is ensuring we already have world-class facilities like yours. How do we then enhance and strengthen and work to ensure that we have laboratories within an institution like yours that can produce and manufacture some of these cosmetic products that meet global standards? Because it is not only the manufacturing and it's not just the chemistry in the lab. A lot of that knowledge is already here. It's about bringing it, but ensuring that there's a facility. But when you finally brought the product together and you've got a final product like we do here, what is the packaging and what does the packaging look like? So it's a type of the entire value chain. So there are different steps that need to be made, and the institutions, especially universities, I think their role and responsibility here is ensuring that they have the facilities. Yes, maybe the industry partner and others may, enhance and support with some funding if it is the true investors, etc. That intersectoral collaboration. So I think it is about who is going to bring what. And at this stage, I don't want to promise that we're going to bring this. It is about, we need to think about working together and seeing how we can all come up with solutions together.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Prof. Ask your questions in health, in other spaces as well. So this is more like one of my good things that I do, especially in human development, outside of my university work. But the university supports me because they know that I'm out there doing a lot of this. So, and it is good for them because informally it is good for the institution, but it is not my day job for the university. And I think for me, that is also what I would like to see academics. And this is where you can leverage on the diaspora in terms of other skills, but other things that people do outside of their institutions, but opportunities that we can identify and then bring to the continent, but also partner with different institutions. And I'm hoping that EPEX will be one of those institutions that we could consider really partnering with.
Absolutely. I see we have Dr. Nkandawiri with us.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Are you able to get me?
Yes.
Thank you to Professor Watts for this inspiring presentation. And I look forward that you can have a collaboration, because our university, we are also trying to develop some products from our Rufunsa side, to do some natural products from there in terms of medicines and so on. But as a lady, I think I'm excited that it's possible for us to go into developing natural cosmetics because of the obvious advantages in there. Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate. And I look forward to hopefully us working together.
Thank you, Dr. Nkandawiri. I believe we have one of our members from, I see we have our chief librarian, Mr. Mvula. Are you with us?
Yes, Madam Oga, I'm here. I'm here.
Welcome.
Thank you, Professor Watts. The presentation the presentation was really informative, and I look forward to actually learning more on what we are trying to develop as an institution. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
I think we have one of our students with us. Madam Tendai, are you one of our students?
Yes, I am.
Lovely, lovely. Which program are you with?
Clinical nutrition and dietetics.
Excellent, excellent. Which year are you in?
Final year.
Well done, well done. Thank you for coming through. Please,
Thank you very much for having me.
I would advise, especially our students in attendance, these are opportunities for you to also have one-on-one interactions with a plethora of international professors. So please take full advantage of this opportunity, ask as many questions as you can. Once again, there are no right or wrong questions. So, Madam Tendai, would you happen to have any questions or even any observations you'd like to share?
I really enjoy the presentation because it made me more enlightened, because for my final research, I'm actually working on a plant that I want to look into, but in terms of in terms of diabetes, to see if it actually does have the phytochemical compositions to make it an effective plant. So the use of indigenous plants is very, very important to us Africans, and I really enjoyed the presentation.
So really good to hear that, Tendai. And that's exactly what we want to see, especially students like yourself at the beginning of their careers, understanding and harnessing what is available in the environment. Because, you know, they taught people about the biggest rivers, whatever big forest that Africa has. But what they didn't tell us in the history classes and the geography classes was the economic and entrepreneurial opportunities that we could harness from those forests, from the rivers, etc. So we have to turn that, and I think we've got new curriculums that really look at our own resources, but also really changing the landscape of how people learn, but also not just learning to finish your degree and go and get a job, but actually to get out there and create a job, which is what happens in Australia. So we send our students, and there's a big push on what we call skills first. We have programs at the ministerial level. They're called skills first. So students should graduate with skills that they get out there. And if they're not going to get a job, they can actually create employment for themselves and for others. And if you are not learning, you should be earning money somewhere with those skills. So it's really driven, and it's really an important area for us. And having somebody who is doing dietetics is actually important, because it's not only the medicinal components or the cosmetic use that we are thinking about, we're also really thinking about the nutritional value that a lot of these plants hold.
Thank you very much, Professor.
My pleasure.
This is wonderful. Earning and learning, indeed, indeed. I'll take one more. Take one more question and/or contribution. I've seen, Mr. Zulu, you have unmuted. Don't mute now.
Yeah.
The floor is yours.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so very much, Professor, for a wonderful presentation and giving out a wide spectrum on how we can leverage within our African setup the indigenous knowledge or the indigenous trees that we have, and be able to make use of them, especially in the cosmetic industry. I think I'll give one of the examples that when we are mapping or creating a database in Rufunsa, where we have our research center, one of the guys they pull a tree during the initiation ceremony for the like as a cosmetic to make sure that when a child is coming out or during that rite of passage when they're coming out of the house they look nice and of course with a brighter skin so it has an impact on their skin so that means within ourselves within our circles we already have the resources that we can use and I think going forward, it would be very good as to build capacity in the already existing African setups or institutions, which we can be able to put up across the market and commercialize our own cosmetics from our own resources that we have. So I take it as an advantage or as an opportunity that we can work together collaboratively, of course, in terms of research and also in the manufacturing of, of, of these cosmetics from our own setup. Would really appreciate the capacity building that would come from you or from that end and work together with us here at LAMU. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the comment. And it's really important that we build on the knowledge that is already there because our knowledge is valid. It has always been valid, but unfortunately it was dismissed or disregarded or undermined. And I think we have a responsibility to ensure that that is restored. And this is where we talk about the Institute of African Studies. It's not about coming to learn just history. It's about people coming in and exchanging ideas, but also sharing those stories through an African voice and an African lens. Thank you.
Yeah.
Professor Watts, thank you so much for your valuable insight. I'm very sure those in attendance, their minds have been opened because a number of things that you have touched on, especially in relation to today's topic, I'm sure a lot of us hadn't thought about it in that way, but now you really got in our imagination running. That's the term. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks, Professor Mbiemba and the entire professorate and everybody who is in the room for making the time, but also for honoring me to invite me. And I'm looking forward to a collaborative feature, whether it's with the industry partners here, but also with our university, my university, but other universities as well. I'm more than happy to see what we can do together.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to invite any closing remarks as well from members of our research.
It looks like, yes, it looks
Hello.
like Biemba, can you close it up? It looks like he's you are back. We have closed,
Yes,
so you can make closing remarks.
Yes, so much.
Oh yes, unfortunately, Professor Miemba had been having some technical difficulties.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, Professor. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much once again.
Pleasure and honor is mine. Thank you. And thanks, Madam Shinoda, for everything.
You are most welcome. So we have come to the end of today's special presentation on cosmetic manufacturing. I'm sure this has opened a lot of our minds. And once again, Professor Watts, thank you for taking the time because we do know that there is quite a bit of a difference in a time difference. Right now for us, it is 12, and I'm sure for yourself, it might be 9 p.m.
It's 9 p.m. That's right.
So we really, really appreciate the time you've taken to be with us, and looking forward to more interactions and future collaborations.
Not a problem. Thank you very much.
So we've come to the end. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Thank you.